This is GDOL partnerships or GDOL and WIOA partnerships, excuse me. And I've got three wonderful women here who are powerhouses in the workforce development world. We kind of just wanted to have a conversation about how to work and partner together in this industry. We really need each other and we serve different roles. And so I'm going to let each one of these ladies introduce themselves and kind of talk about their organization and the work that they do there. And then we'll get started off with some questions.
Thank you, Brittany. Um, Shout out to my peeps. Hey, hey, hey. Thank you. So I'm Linda Manis. I'm the director of the Business Services Unit for the Georgia Department of Labor. The commissioner created that division to take care of employers. So the business services piece is what it says. It takes care of businesses. And our main goal is to work with the economic development community and the employers across the state. But the big thing that we do is recruitment. That's our expertise. We are known for our customized recruitment team. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that. We've just rolled out Customized Recruitment X, which is for expansions with existing industry. So we're growing at leaps and bounds, and every way we grow is in recruitment. So our expertise is recruitment, and I'm really proud of the team that I've got. And we're going to talk about how we can bridge the training component with the recruiting component so that it's an oiled wheel and it's a seamless process with our employer community, which is important.
Hi there. I'm Lisa Atkinson, and I work with the Georgia Department of Labor. Worked with them for 27 years. I work in Region 1, Northwest Georgia, and I am the regional coordinator. I work with economic development, business and industry. I serve on the workforce board for WIOA, and I'm also the on-the-job training coordinator for the Georgia Department of Labor and WIOA.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Lambert. I'm the workforce director with Northwest Georgia, WorkSource Northwest Georgia. We're Area 1 in this wonderful state of Georgia that we have. Just a little bit about what our area do. If those of you that's familiar with WIOA, we do everything. Basically, that's what it feels like most days, let me tell you. But an important piece is that we train unemployed and underemployed individuals as well as youth to get back into the workforce so that they can be self-sufficient. Now, that's saying a lot in a nutshell, but basically, those of you that know about WIOA, you know basically that's what it's all about. So today, I just hope that we can open some doors and share some things with you on how we work together.
And I think one thing we also wanted to touch on, Linda and I definitely recognize that our titles sound very similar. She's the business services director. I'm the business services manager at TCSG. And we recognize that while we have the same titles, we serve different roles. Lisa kind of touched on, or Linda touched on that they do recruitment, and we have the training dollars to get these people ready for these opportunities. So we're just going to get started off here with how do you guys in your area determine the lead agency or lead point of contact when you start off a project?
I'll start on that one. What I usually do is, and I'll just speak from the Georgia Department of Labor perspective, when we have that initial meeting with the employer or their customer, we just listen to what their concerns are. And then what we try to do is take those concerns back to our partnerships and try to decide which expertise needs to step in and offer the services that they do best. It may not be recruiting. It may be training. It may not be training. I mean, it could be multiple things, but because of the many, many partnerships that we have across the state and in those regions, we know who those experts are. And the beauty of that is if you're an expert, you don't need to step in those lanes because those people have got control of it. One of the things that we did when we created business services was we created a mission statement. And I got to tell you guys, we were in a room with Post-it notes, big Post-it notes on the wall, trying to create a mission statement that really did talk about who we are and what we wanted to be when we created business services. And our mission statement, I think, really says it all. It's creating valuable workforce solutions through strategic alliances and community partnerships. And I think we've tried to stay true to that. And one of the reasons is because we are not the experts in everything. And we want to make sure that we have an abundant offering to our employers that is an indication of the collaboration that we have in a regional setting.
I think the one thing that in determining what we do, how we do it, is whoever is the first person that contacts. I'll give you an example with an employer. with economic development, with the regional economic development. I had a really good relationship with Stephanie Searcy, who is actually with GNTC now. And so what we have done is we just have, there's a way that we do it that it is, we speak for each other. We give the employer just enough information. She can talk about OJT, about GDOL, about our job postings. I can talk a little bit about economic development, and then we can talk about WIOA. It's just we give them enough information, and then we're going to refer it on to the expert. So when I talk about OJT, when I'm talking to a business and industry, or even if it's a prospect, I talk about it, but I say I'm not the expert. I will call in the expert that's a part of my team. So we pretty much, and we've been real fortunate because, you know, Lisa and I have worked together for years, but the one thing is that we just involve each other in everything and we share. And I think that's the one key component is that with BSU, yes, I think it may be confusing because you're doing training and you're doing recruitment, but the one thing is we can't do WIOA's job. WIOA doesn't do our job. So for us, we just see it as we're just sharing opportunities to help each other.
Can I say something? I'm going to let you talk, Lisa. One of the things that I think that, and I think everybody in here will agree, employers don't want to be inundated with multiple people. Right. And that is the problem that we have found across the state is when we go in and we talk to employers, they go, well, your business services, their business services, what does that mean? And it's a simple answer. We recruit, they train. And without us, you know, without that recruiting arm of it, there's nobody to train. So they see the coordination that way. I can tell you when I go in to see an employer, if I have more than 2 people with me, I mean, the red flag goes up. It's like, oh my God, they're going to arrest me. They're here to to collect taxes. I mean, their minds go crazy. And it's so much simpler if you just go in there, communicate with them, talk with them, and then go back to the drawing board and pick and choose the experts that best suit their needs, period. I just had to say that. I'm sorry.
Well, from the workforce development perspective, we have an excellent relationship with our career center and career center managers and our BSU, business service representative in our area. But to be honest with you, who determines the lead agency is really based upon the need, you know. And since that is an employer contract, we do normally follow the lead of our BSU unit. And it really is determined by exactly what that need is. For instance, if it's a company that is closing or laying off employees, then we take our lead from the Georgia Department of Labor because under WIOA now are here in the state of Georgia, they are the really entity that makes contact with the local areas as far as closures. And so normally someone from the state level office will contact us and then we'll say, okay, you know, let us know about a layoff or whatever. And then they would go ahead and contact the career center managers, reach out to the business service unit rep. In the meantime, they may say, well, you know the educational piece better than we do. Do you mind contacting those institutions or those career advisors or individuals as well? And we say, sure, no problem. Or they can do it directly themselves. We have such a good unit in place that we don't step on each other's toes. We understand our roles and our responsibilities, and we all try to fit into that piece because the ultimate goal is to help the employees that are being affected by those layoffs. And I think we do an excellent job. The unit that we have together does an excellent job doing that. So it's based upon the need of that employer. And if it's a layoff or anything along that line, even our work-based programs, we take our lead from the business service unit because they provide, you know, OJT, work-based programs for us, and they are the initial contact with the employer. So we look to them. And I know several of the local areas have business service individuals on staff that you send out. And here in Northwest Georgia, we are somewhat different from that perspective. It doesn't mean that we will always be different from that perspective because I hope that we can add a position like that. But, you know, we have such a long history. We go all the way back to JTPA, WIA, now it's WIOA.
And you're going to tell our age.
I know, I'm sorry. And I know I'm stopping right now, I promise. So, and we have always been there as a collaborative, and we have always had such a wonderful partnership. And I think Linda said it best, we try to stay in our lane, and we do. And that's important because we all have a job to do, and we are the professionals, and we know what needs to be done. I don't need to be out there trying to make contacts with employers when I know Lisa and her team is going to be out there doing that for our region. And I know each region is set up differently. But, and if we need anything from an employer, I'm going to contact Lisa first and say, Lisa, are you familiar with this new employer? And then she's going to say, well, either she do or she's going to say, let me get back with you. And she's going to email me and let me know exactly who to contact, who I need to contact, or what may be the best way to contact them, or they may make that initial contact for me.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for touching on that, because at the State Office of Workforce Development, we recognize that Area 1 is special and unique, but there's no reason why we can't continue these healthy relationships in different areas that are similar to yours. So I think we touched on this a little bit, but I know some of you guys had some answers for how do you determine which partners to bring to the table, and maybe touch on when is appropriate to bring them to the tables. How do you determine that?
I don't know that I can answer that as appropriately as they can, because I know from my perspective, when we get together, ideally, it's nice to come together as a collaborative group before you even go and initially have any kind of conversation with employers. But that doesn't always happen just because of people's schedules. I think ideally to convene monthly would be great, but I don't know that we can do that. I think the main thing for us is if we can't meet and can't be together, then we at least need to be able to communicate. But I will say this, I think a lot of the groups across the state have developed such a level of trust within their regions that it's kind of like they almost know what to do. It's like, and I say this a lot, it's an oiled wheel, because I've had so many employers say that to me. This looks like an oiled wheel, and I think that's the best compliment we can have. But I think at the same time is, again, you know who your partners are. You trust them. If you've got somebody that's not playing well with others, and you're going to have that in regions, I hope that the bulk of the team can come together and address that issue as a team, not as, calling any one person out, because what you don't want to do is go in and have that show up in front of the employers. So I'll let these two kind of talk about that, because I think that's more of their lane, but I still think the level of communication and trust is important.
I think that, and I don't know why we keep passing that back and forth. Okay, sorry. Okay, I think the one thing that I can say as far as from my perspective as a regional coordinator is that business, industry, and prospects, I listen to their needs, I make notes of what they need, and then I take that back, and then I automatically do follow-up. I do an email, we do an email follow-up with the employer, and then it goes to all the partners for referrals. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just basically sharing information, providing information, and I think that's the one thing that if there's anything that I can say about this today is that we have it the way we have it. It's just the way we've worked on it, and it's taken a long time to get there. But we've been doing it for so long that it's unique. But at the same time, we're not afraid of each other because we just do different things. We may have same business titles, but it's a totally different thing. So sharing information, having trust in each other, and being available for each other and helping each other is basically, that's basically what we do. So when we talk to an employer or we talk to business and industry, that's my message. I'm not the expert in this, but I can pass it along. And I hate to be redundant in saying that, but that's basically what we tell them. We listen. And the one thing that Linda said is, I'll say this. I went to a meeting, and there were 6 different agencies at the meeting with one employer. And I said, we're here from the government, and we're to help you. Because, that's the one thing employers think of is, oh, wow, here they come. And there were 6 of us, and it was such overkill. And I said, let's don't ever do that again, because it was just too much. Because it's kind of like you give them so much information, they don't even know what to ask. So having 1 or 2, regardless of whether it's Lisa going or if it's me going to talk to, to somebody, it's better to have 1 to 2 people and not bombard your employers, because it just sets it sends the wrong message, because they know that we trust each other. And the other thing that I'll say about what Linda was talking about with having problems with your a partner is this, is the main thing is when we go in to talk, and if we go in as a team, we want to be united, and we want to let them know that, especially with prospects, that if they're coming to Region 1, hey, you're going to get good service from Region 1 because we all get along, and we understand your needs. So, got anything to add to that?
I just want to say that, workforce is a complex system. And again, the most important thing is to collaborate and really get to know your partners and the piece that they all can bring to the table, because, we don't need to be stepping on each other's toes, and I don't think we do that too much in Northwest Georgia, if at all. It's important to have a good relationship, that you can reach out to an individual or Lisa, for instance, and I say, look, Lisa, I didn't quite understand, what was our role in that? Were we doing the right thing, or should you all have done this, or whatever? We can talk like that, and that is from years of communicating. And I think that's the most important thing. If you don't communicate, then you're not going to know what the left hand's not going to know what the right hand is doing, and you're going to bump heads. And that doesn't look well as a region, definitely doesn't look well or right, to an employer. So.
I know we've talked about coming into a meeting with maybe 1 or 2 people and not to bombard the employer. Can you guys talk a little bit about how you strategize on the back end of how you're going to communicate with employers? Also, maybe if there's changes in your region, updates to policies, how do you guys kind of communicate on the back end and strategize together?
Usually what I do is if there's changes, we've had several changes in OJT, and anytime there are changes with the rules and regulations in OJT, that's all. I have staff meetings with my staff. I have representatives from WIOA at my meetings, but at the same time, we follow up with email, communication, and conference calls. Because a lot of times, it's kind of like Linda said, we do not have the time, and everyone cannot be at the same place at the same time. So a lot of times, we do conference calls. It's just really basically communication and providing the information and making sure that everybody is up to date on who the contacts are and just staying on top of it.
One thing is, from the one-stop perspective, is that we have it's every other month meetings. No, I'm sorry, quarterly meetings and every other month conference calls where all our partners are representative there at those meetings and also on those conference calls. And basically, we just outline, okay, what's going on with the one-stop system? Is it working? Who is doing their part? Who isn't doing their part? Or any policy changes or anything that may have occurred that we need to discuss. So that's one opportunity or different times that we can meet and discuss any issues or different things that's going on in our area.
Wonderful, thank you. Someone mentioned sometimes you might have a problem child in your group working, and that it's important to nip it because if we come into a meeting with an employer and we're trampling all over one another, we all look bad in the end. So can you kind of talk about how you address problems before you go into a meeting, or maybe if there is an issue in a meeting, how you follow up and handle that?
Well, this group doesn't have problems. Let me just say that. And it's so irritating sometimes because it's every time I have a problem with one of the regions, I go, let me call Lisa and see how they would handle this, because they just seem to understand how to work well together. I'm just a firm believer in being honest. I just don't think you can't put lipstick on that to look pretty. You just have to pull the Band-Aid off, and you just have to do it. And anybody that works for me knows that what comes up comes out. And I feel like, for me, I'm working in this state. I mean, I don't have just one region. I have the whole state. But when I travel, I'm representing the Department of Labor, and I'm representing everybody out there as well. And so at the end of the day, if somebody's not playing well with others, you have to address it. And hopefully, like I said earlier, that you've got enough of your team that is collaborating together well that you can come together and say, okay, let's talk about this. I have a rule in my division is safe space, and what that means is you can knock on my door and you can say to me, Linda, I need to have safe space with you, and I don't care what you say to me, because we've set the rules that way. But I'm going to have it with you too, okay? So it's a two-way street. I think you have to be able to do that, because at the end of the day, and this is important, the employer and the job seekers are the ones that are going to matter. And if we can't get along amongst ourselves, then we're no value to anybody in this state. And the employers are going to recognize it, and the job seekers are going to recognize it, and guess what? Nobody's going to come knocking on our door. And y'all are going to be sending money back. And that's the bottom line. And so my theory is rip the Band-Aid off and just do it. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the bigger picture. So I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, but that's just me.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback on that too, just about the importance of communicating with your partners. If there's an issue between Linda and I, me addressing it with Linda, because there's so many times I get emails from local areas that are discussing their partners. And while I'm happy to facilitate that conversation sometime, it would be so much easier if we just talked to one another and built those relationships. And so never be afraid to kind of check yourselves and be respectful, of course, and just talking about the issues that are happening in your community and figuring out together. So can you talk about some of the best strategies for employer meetings? What happens when you get in the room with the employers? Do the partners get together to discuss these strategies before an employer meeting? Maybe do some research together? How do you kind of prepare for your meetings?
I think that's region by region. I think some regions do, and I think some regions don't. I think you should, just because you want to be, you want to be of like mind when you go there. But I don't know that that's a policy that's in place, that you have to do that. I would say you guys do that because I think that's why you're strong in your area. It's going to be disjointed if you don't. I mean, they're going to know that you haven't met and you haven't really collaborated and strategized on what you're going to do. I'm from Macon, so I do participate more in a lot of, not more, but a lot of the stuff that goes on in Macon. And we've had a couple of meetings that I've been able to attend, and it's good because we get in a room and, we just kind of hash it out. What do you do best? What can you offer? What can you bring to the table? And all the partners sit there and they talk about, well, this is what we can do. This is what we can't do. And at the end of the day, you want to address the people that are going to be the important experts on that team. I'm not going to be one. I'm just going to tell you up front, I'm not going to be one. But I've got the best team in the state by far. And I'll put any of them up against anybody because I know them and I trust them. So when I'm at a meeting, I don't hesitate saying, okay, Andrea's going to be your point of contact. Leave me out of it because I trust her. And that's what you've got to do with your partnerships. You've got to have that kind of relationship, not only with your own staff, but with your partners as well. And I think that if you can't get in a room and strategize, do it. If you can't, get on the phone and strategize. If you can't, do an email. Figure out some way to communicate before you get in there with those employers. Because let me tell you what, they don't have time for you to come in there and waste their day if you don't have an option. And I will tell you this, when I talk to my team, and I know they get really irritated with me, I'm a firm believer in don't promise anything at first, okay? Go in there, you listen to what their needs are, and then you go back to the drawing board. Let's talk. Let's see what we can do that's going to be the best practice for them. There may be two options. I think we should always offer a couple of options because it is not a one-size-fits-all. And I think that the partnerships would do well to do that too because, and I tell employers, I'm not going to give you an answer today. Because I want to go back and I want to think about this on my drive back to my office. I want to talk to some of the experts on my team because at the end of the day, I want to bring to you the best strategy that we can because I am not going to overpromise and underdeliver. I promise you that. So I think partnerships could do that too. Do we? I don't know. I think you guys probably do and some out there do as well. But that's not a bad strategy to have. Always, just be upfront. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do today because I don't know yet. And there's nothing wrong with that. But get back with them within a couple of days, okay?
It's just, I'll give an example. Recruitment events that we do. Anything that we do in recruitment, we include the Career Center. If it's not a customized recruitment or a recruitment that is specialized by BSU, we include the Career Center. We include WIOA. We use the mobile lab. We use everything we can so that when that customer comes in, we are giving them everything that we can. So that would be a strategy that's the first things that we think of. And I mean, I've got them on speed dial as to know when to do and how to get that bus because that can be important for people when we need computers out in the middle of Northwest Georgia. Yes. So I mean, it's one of those things where you just got to look at what your resources are and take advantage of them.
I
Just want to add one thing to the employer meetings. I think they're so needed, and it's an opportunity for the partners to come together as well as employers. But at the same time, the employer meetings that I have attended, I don't get to attend all of them. Believe me, I don't. I would like to, but I don't, because usually I'm busy with something else, putting out a fire here and there or whatever. But anyway. I think it's important because each employer meeting, the Career Center managers does an excellent job. They always have such a takeaway from those meetings. For instance, they'll bring in someone to talk about insurance or new updates to insurance, with the new changes with insurance and taxes and various different things that is beneficial to our employers, not just in our area, but any employer. So it's always such a takeaway as well. It's an opportunity to collaborate and partner, but also it's a takeaway that the employer, as well as workforce development, have as well. So I love that about the employer meetings.
I'd like to add something too there. I think while it is very important to kind of touch base with your partners before you go into employer meetings to strategize, that when you go into that meeting that you're not too tied to that agenda. You guys may have discussed what you're going to go into the meeting with, but at the end of the day, we're there to serve the employer. And so we want to be mindful of our listening skills, making sure that we're asking questions that lead to the answers that we can potentially give them. So while we want to strategize, just make sure you're not too tied to your agenda. We've got great programs, but we want to hear from the employer. So let's dig into some examples. Can you guys talk about some of your success stories, talk about who coordinated those efforts when you had success, and what were your outcomes?
Well, we had a company in Macon. I'll talk about that for a second. Kumho Tire, which came a few years ago, and if you've never worked with a Korean company, it's a challenge because it's just different. And basically, it's the communication skills plus just their work ethics are a little different from ours. And we really struggle. When we came together, we all got together in a big room and we talked it out and hashed it out. And at that time, we had Amy, who is now on BSU. She was a business services rep with WIOA. So now she's worn two hats. And so we were working with two boards, which can be a challenge because they have different policies, you know. And so that was a challenge for us. But I think what made it work was we came together, we talked through those challenges, we tried to work through it as best we can. We came up with some strategies on how to work closely with the employer and bring the experts and the best of the best to the table so that at the end of the day it was a win-win for the employer. Now I will tell you, it was not perfect by any stretch of the means. It was one of those situations where we kept doing better and we knew that we were better, we were getting better at it. The biggest challenge was just the communication and just their ability to not really understand the way we do business over here versus the way they did business in their country. But the partnership was strong because we had Andrea with the Central Georgia Technical College. You know, we had the Development Authority who stepped in and helped. You know, we had both of the boards, Macon and Houston County, and it was like everybody just kind of stepped in and just did what we needed to do. And it was a challenge. But at the end of the day, I think what we ended up learning from each other was that we were building a very, very strong collaborative team. And because of that, we are now in Macon. I'm really proud to say that we came together a couple of weeks ago, and that group is now meeting, and we're trying to put together a program that is going to address some of the things we're talking about today. Who are the experts? What are those lanes that we need to stay in and stay out of? And how are we going to address not only that, but the deficiency in our workforce in Macon, which is really struggling right now. You know, that's the elephant that nobody wants to talk about. You know, we're real quick to, you know, want to go out and drive business to the state, but I don't know about you guys, we're at the bottom. I mean, we are at in my mind, an epidemic of finding strong workforce. And thank God for the technical colleges who are stepping up to help us because they're going to be the saving grace of this. You know, we saw it coming 5 years ago, but nobody wanted to talk about it. You know, and I say that when we sit at a table with a prospect from another country coming over here, we make a lot of promises, and we close those doors, and we ride home in our car, and we go, how are we going to do it? Because at the end of the day, we're just poaching from other companies. you know, the best of the best. We get them over there, and then we'll move them from there over here. And that's not what we want to do, but it's the reality in which we live. And so I'm very grateful for the partnerships in Macon, because right now we're talking about it. And let me tell you something, it's a tough conversation to have, but at the end of the day, if we don't all say it out loud and we don't all try to come together and fix it, we're going to be so far behind the 8 ball when 2020, 21 comes. I don't know what we're going to do. So I'm very grateful that our partnerships there are talking. So I think that's our success story, because Kumo really taught us a lesson, I think. And I think we realized, you know, we've got a strong partnership here. Let's bring them together and let's have the hard conversation. Okay, and that is workforce.
I think the one thing about it is that, we had this conversation, is it's not kumbaya, okay? Because it's good for us, yes, but we understand that there's every region in here that it's done different. So it's just examples of what works for us and how it's worked for us. But the thing about it is this, is just overcoming the fear of working together and trusting each other. I mean, I can't say that enough, because the success stories are going to come when you work together. Everybody's going to be successful. So, you know, I'll give you an example of, in Region 1, my success would be with my team is that when we have recruitment events, when we have plant closures, we're gathering a lot of resumes. Well, I'm going to be selfish with those resumes, because those resumes are people that I can take back to my OJT team and say, okay, here's resumes, let's find them jobs. So what does that do? That helps the employer that we're going to match them with. That helps WIOA. That helps us with our goals for OJT. And at the same time, it's a benefit, because it's going to be a cost saving to the employers. So it's just looking at everything and making sure that you provide the information, and then it's going to be successful for everybody.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question, and then we're going to open up the floor to questions. Just so that we have some takeaways, if you guys could go one by one and talk about your number one tip for having successful partnerships, and then also what's your biggest challenge. Maybe start with the challenge and then end on a high note with your successful tools for partnerships. Excuse me.
I think the biggest challenge is just knowing what lane to stay in. I mean, you know, we're experts, and let's utilize those experts. My motto is, let's don't compete with each other. Let's complement each other. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I'd like for the takeaway to be. You know, whether you agree with it or not, or whether you think this is all kumbaya, I don't know. But at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. Let's stop competing with each other. We're not in this as a competition. We're in this to complement each other and be a strong, you know, partnership across the state.
I think the one thing that I can say as a representative of the Department of Labor is the workforce issue. That's our biggest challenge. That's our biggest challenge with WIOA, with OJT, and a lot of what employers are looking at now is incumbent worker, because they're training their people that are already working for them, because there's such a challenge. So that would be a big challenge for my OJT team, is finding the right people and the people that meet WIOA requirements. That's a big challenge. The one message I would send is just working together, sharing information, and being unified in the fact that we're all here to help people.
I think one challenge for workforce development is the fact that we are probably training less people than we ever have before, because the economy, I think the last numbers I saw for Northwest Georgia is our unemployment rate is like 3.2%. But of course we know that does not include all those individuals that have stopped looking for work and that have exhausted their unemployment. So, but still, they say it's 3.2%. But at the same time,
Are you saying that numbers, Jay?
well, I didn't say that. No, no. But that's one challenge, and for our individual training accounts, you know, getting people into training, you know, when they can go out and get a job, and they have such a selection to choose from. And even as Lisa said, from our OJT perspective, you know, our work-based training program, whether it be OJT or, you know, or anything else, we individuals, they're just hard to come by right now, because anyone can get a job pretty much. But at the same time, One thing is the fact that, we all work for the same goal. And it's important to note that we try not to duplicate services. And I think that goes back to what Linda said, stay in your lane. Why am I going to try to do work-based learning when I know the business service unit with the Department of Labor does it better, So I'm not going there with it, because we rely on them. And they refer people, they interview people, they refer people, and they have the major contacts to employers anyway. So they're really the best individuals to do that for us. So, and that goes back, to our collaboration, our partnership that we have. But I think one thing to remember is just to communicate, keep the lines of communication open with all of your partners. We do not think alike. We want to take more ownership and accountability for our own programs because I have my numbers I have to reach. And so do Lisa. But if we're working together, we can make that happen easily and quicker than we can working against each other. And like Lisa said, we don't all hold hands and go kumbaya and all of that. But at the same, but at the same time, we understand exactly that they need us and we need them. Yeah. And we work together. That's the most important thing.
So any questions? Got one over here.
Hi. I don't have a question. I really just have a statement to make. So I am Brittany. I'm from the coastal region. And for the BSR down there, we have Freddie Noble. So me and Freddie worked together when the partnership with WorkSource and GDOL started to happen there. So we were in the office together. And we knew each other before because we had formed a relationship. And then when he moved in, we got closer. And it was a pleasure. It really was. And that partnership, just giving you guys some feedback from the front line, it works. It works. When we open those doors at 8 o'clock, the customers, they don't care who WorkSource is or they just need services. They don't care. They don't see WorkSource. They come in, we greet them, and we get them into the right direction they need to go in. And it truly does work. And the feedback that we get from the public is that they're happy that the merger happened because they kind of come in, it's a one-stop. Okay, I'm here to file for unemployment. I don't know what's next. It may be training, it may be an OJT, and they're able just to come one office over to me and see what their options could possibly be. So it definitely works from what I see for the coastal region down in Camden County. It definitely works. It's a great pleasure to work with the DOL down there. It's working out perfectly. So I wanted to give you guys just some feedback from a frontline staff member that does it every single day of the week. So it is working.
Thanks, Brittany. Any other questions or comments? We're here for feedback as well. Seeing none. Okay. Ladies, do you have any last minute words?
I would like to hear what Amy thinks about having worked both lanes.
I guess I can start since I did start with WIOA, and I was looking for guidance, I guess, and turned on to this fabulous BSU unit through Andrea. So, but no, I mean, we established the Middle Georgia region, I think from the get-go, and we cut our teeth on Kumo. Yeah, we cut our teeth on Kumo. Kumo was tough, and it wasn't just necessarily the partnership; it was the culture difference. And we had to literally band together to overcome the culture. So it was more of a forced partnership at that time. But it worked well because we know what we do well, and we let each other do what we did best. But we still work together, and it just works. I mean, it makes perfect sense. So and it's actually easy to do if you've got the right people in the right places. So I mean, that's the key. So you got to have people invested in the partnership. So, and I got stolen.
Thank you, Amy.
You just want to talk.
Microphone. I was just curious, like in Region 1, I mean, I can vaguely understand how it works with the OJT as you do, Lisa, but do you utilize like any of our, like EG, to find qualified candidates for OJT? Because I think that would be something that other regions could consider, just to put it out there and helping them recruit for their OJT candidates. Employ Georgia. That is our, database of, individuals that register. Yeah, register through the Georgia Department of Labor for a job, so.
The EG program is essential to us. There's two, my girls love this. I say my girls. My husband says, don't call them your girls. They're not your girls. They're your team. But I'm like, they're not my girls. But, and they would tell you that. But we use EG to screen for individuals. They put services in. They do everything in EG just like a regular person in DOL would to utilize that system. Then they also have another system through the workforce system that has just recently changed names. It was the GEO system. So they've got the EG system, and then they've got a new system now that they do. So they kind of do two systems. So they utilize EG, plus they have another system that they use. So at every recruitment event, everything that we do, that information is captured for EG to build on, so that when we need a better customer base, we're going to have that. So yeah, we definitely take advantage of that.
I just want to add to what Lisa said, and I think you said it, Lisa, that when workforce development is there with our mobile career center, and we goes to staffing or job fairs, all of those individuals that come through are registered in EG, so to speak, Employ Georgia. And so they're there, and those individuals are in the system, and their data as well is there. So, and we have individuals that man our mobile career center that assist in that process as well. So yes, so they are put into Employ Georgia.
The conversation about the two databases, since there is all of this wonderful collaboration going on, has there been any efforts to look at how we can share the databases? Because I know when you go into the one stop, you face those two, you're either going through the DOL system, or you're going through the WIOA system, or you're going through both. As the new person looking at this, that just seems like there's a lot of cross-duplication and some possibility for some additional collaboration, and this could be a conversation that's had before and I don't know. So I'm just asking, is there any opportunity there for some additional collaboration?
That's above our pay grade.
So before I go to the next question, I just want to say it is regulated by WIOA that our systems talk together. And the last time we sent a plan to the feds for the state of Georgia, that was the biggest piece of feedback that we needed to do a better job of. The challenge is our systems look very different. And to retrain both sides of the arm, or all four of the arms, to kind of work on the same system is a challenge. And so we've looked at overlaying those systems with something that kind of we pick and choose what kind of data we can share, because also the privacy issues, but it's something that we're looking at and we're working towards, but we haven't gotten there yet.
But it's a great question. It is. And it's a challenge.
One thing I wanted to say is, as a former HR director for a county government, one of the things I realized that governments, private businesses, they have their own system of hiring practices. One of the things that I thought we underutilized was the Department of Labor's Recruitment Center. And so what I started doing is transitioning our application process over to the DOL, because one of the things is there's a screening process that goes through, and you have that one point. People can go online, they can register an account, and then they'll set up the screening and so forth, and then you'll get the employees that meet those requirements. So as an economic development director now, one of the things that I try to encourage our local city employee agencies to do is utilize the Department of Labor. I think we don't utilize a lot of the services that are out there to help us. Number one, maybe because they're not aware of them, or maybe there's not enough folks like me going around educating the public about these services that are out there. Not only that, but we utilize the Department of Labor. We on-the-job training, one of the biggest things we run into, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, is I call it recycling of employees. They'll go from you to someone else to someone else, somewhere else, and a lot of it's because of wages. And one of the things we did is we reviewed wages on a regional level. So we try to base things on a regional approach and do some collaboration. And so we had a lot of turnover in public safety. And so what we did is we turned around and looked at the number of employees versus our wages versus cost associations. And about a year and a half ago, our county government, we convinced them to raise wages $3 an hour for public safety. And a lot of people said, what in the world are you doing? I said, we're spending more money for turnover. And I gathered data for a year, and I presented it to them. And we were like 85% turnover in law enforcement, public safety. We're now 21% turnover. And we're actually in the black now instead of the red in wages. So now they're continuing to give those numbers. But the Department of Labor in Waycross was very helpful in assisting us and me now in gathering data and putting information in place to help try to keep retention. So what I try to recommend is we got a lot of utilization and services out there, and sometimes I just wish people would ask questions like, I would. So I appreciate all that. And on-the-job training, too, I'm thinking, it just rattled my mind. Law enforcement, EMTs, public safety, you hire them, if they have no experience, they got to send law enforcement to the academy. That would be on-the-job training, would it not be? Okay, so there's some things rattling in my head a little bit that you can offset some cost of some training for communities or private agencies with some of the services that are out there. I think we're just underutilizing those services as a community. I just want to thank y'all for what you do.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. One thing I will say, when Commissioner Butler started in 2011, I think, his focus shifted from job seekers to employers. And basically what that means is, we really did put an emphasis on our business community. Because without them, we're no good to job seekers. I mean, does everybody agree with that? I mean, no jobs, we can't help those folks. But the one thing that I think was really smart on his part was creating BSU. Not just because I have this luxury of working with these people, but because I was able to pick people that have a passion for the business community. And what that is they're passionate about a service delivery like the Department of Labor has never offered before. And we've got a lot of work to do, but we've made some serious strides in that, because one of the things that I think that we do well, and like I said, we can improve on that, is we really do take care of our employers. Do we get it right every time? No. But we strive to do that. And I think that what you're going to start seeing, hopefully, is a real shift in the service delivery that you're going to see in our local career centers as well. We're putting a challenge on some of them, because what happens with BSU is when we do a customized recruitment event, customized recruitment is for new businesses coming to Georgia. We're now an incentive for the governor's office to offer that to a prospect. And that means we're going to be your mini HR department. Well, if we're ever their mini HR department, guess what? When they have an expansion, guess who they call? They don't call the Career Center, they call BSU. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to bring that to everybody in the state. And you're exactly right. There's a lot of stuff that we do that people don't know about. But the one thing that people are going to start seeing, I hope, is a real shift in the quality of our recruiting efforts. Because that, to me, is the piece that we can improve on every day. If we're not bringing value to an employer, then we're not doing our job. And at the end of the day, that employer needs to know that when Linda Manis walks in that door, she's got my best interest at hand. And when she tells me, you need to look at Johnny over here, he may not have everything you want, but you need to trust me on that. And he does, and he trusts you, and Johnny works out, guess what? Joe's going to be hired, Susie's going to be hired, because you've built that relationship. And that's the one thing that we are trying to strive to do. We've got to be able to build that connection with our employers where they don't even question us. And what you did with the salary is beautiful, because we've got to be able to have that conversation with employers. And they've got to be able to say, okay, they said we're not paying enough, we're not doing, we're not doing right by our employees. The turnover is our fault. It's their fault. It's nobody's fault but the employers. And if you can't say that to them, then you don't have the relationship you need to have with them. Because at the end of the day, when you walk in, even if they don't listen to you, you've got to be able to go there with them. Because at the end of the day, you are looking out for them. Because let me tell you something, attrition is $33,000, guys, for every employee that turns. You figure that out. $3 raise is nothing compared to that $33,000 turnaround. And that's what you got. And let me tell you something else. Don't get me on my soapbox. You have got.
Kick 'em all back
I
down.
know. And I say this to my staff all the time. If you're not the expert, you better pretend like you are. Because nothing is more, you can't debate with somebody when they come in there and they believe what they're saying and they deliver it. So if you're not the expert, become the expert and then talk it. Because you got to talk it, you got to walk it, and you got to deliver it. I'm done.
I think I forgot my question.
I'm not gonna try to follow that, but I will say this. The one thing that he said is this. There are a lot of people that don't know about our programs. There are a lot of people that don't know about OJT. Okay, OJT is money to recover costs for training. And that is something that if you are sitting in this room and you do not know your regional coordinator for your area, get to know them, because we are the resource for the region. And if we don't know a contact, we will get it for you. And then that way you have an outlet and you've got a go-to person. And I think that that's the one thing that if we're going to get the information out, we got to have a contact. So, that would be my recommendation. And that's all I'm going to say. And I'm sorry, we're not going to sing Kumbaya today.
Becky, you don't have a question?
No, I was really wondering how all of the online companies, yours was a perfect segue, companies that have their own online application process, how that had impacted you and what marketing were you going to bring out to address that. I love the customized Recruitment X. I'm looking forward to that very much. But
market it, please.
yeah, I certainly will. Right, I'm an old HR person who's now an economic development person, but what people are doing now, they're either buying, they're adding to their wages, they're borrowing, they're stealing your employees, or they're building, they're growing their own. And what we're working on now in Houston County is growing our own. But the Department of Labor ought to be the first stop. And you mentioned marketing as well, how we get that word out.
Thank you.
Can you guys talk a little bit to Customized Training X? Customized recruitment, excuse me.
Yeah. So customized recruitment was created about 6 years ago, and we just kind of threw it up on the wall and said, let's try this, because we were struggling with the quality of referrals. And so we realized that if we were going to play at the table with the governor's office and the Department of Economic Development, we had to have something that nobody else had. And no other state has it. And it really is, if the governor's office decides they want to put it on the table for a prospect, we are the mini HR department for their startup. And that means one point of contact. That means we have Joel in the back who does all the recruiting events, does all the logistics of that, press releases. The list is long. And we have an MOU that we sign, and we have a checklist that these employers can pick what they want. Our team just got back from Korea about 6 weeks ago. We went over to SK is coming to Commerce, Georgia, the largest investment in the history of Georgia. And they invited us to go over there. Who would have thought 10 years ago Department of Labor would be flying to Korea to meet with this group? But because customized recruitment is such a popular program, we got the invite, which was really interesting. I get calls from other states all the time. Will you come teach us how to do what you do? Hang up. Because we're not going to do that. We're the only state, and we want to keep it that way. And one of the things that we realized, Becky, and I'm glad you like CRX, is what happens to the largest volume of growth in the state, which is existing industry, when we can't put customized recruitment on the table. So we went to the commissioner and said, we have an idea. He goes, is it going to get me arrested? I said, no, sir. I said, let's do this for existing industry too. And he goes, I love it. So we're rolling it out now. And let me just say this to you guys, because if you ever start helping us market it, there's one caveat that continues to bite us. If they're paying a staffing agency, we're not going to go do it, because I'm not going to make money for them. Does that make sense? And that's the problem we're having. But Becky's right. We should be given an opportunity first. And if we don't deliver, then you go pay whoever you need to pay. But don't do that out of the gate. Let us come in there. Let us try. We ask lots of questions. We're going to hang in there with you. We're going to stay the course. And if we don't deliver, then you go pay somebody. But don't do that first. Because at the end of the day, what? It's got to be existing industry that's expanding. Yeah, y'all knew that. Yeah. But the biggest problem for us was the staffing agencies are in there. And, you know, at the end of the day, they have the same pool of people we do. And you're paying them money to do what we can do for free. Well, here's the thing. I wanted to make sure small businesses were included. So what we did you have to be expanding by 20%, which means if you have 10 people, you don't need to be expanding but by 2. I mean, it's easy. So, you know, we try to make it available for small businesses. We have the other thing we won't, and I hate saying won't do, because we will. You know, we aren't going to do this. We're not going to do fast food. I'm not going to do fast food, because you know what? The career centers can do that. You know, I want to do advanced manufacturing. I want to do distribution centers. I want to do logistics. I mean, even healthcare. I want to do those hard-to-fill positions. If all they want is somebody that can fog a mirror, then they can find that on their own. We want a skill. We want to recruit skills. You know what I'm saying? We want to go to Andrew Griner in the back and say, we've got this need in this community. You need to put some training together, because these people, we can't find these people for this company. So it's got to have a skill set attached to it. So that's another caveat. But the 20% is negotiable, I will tell you that, because I don't want to leave anybody out. At the end of the day, the existing industry is what keeps this state afloat anyway. So.
I know you said this, but I didn't want you to glaze over it. But all of these services that they've discussed today are at no charge. Yeah. So.
And I will tell you this, we can throw our net in recruiting far, because we bought a career builder license, and our recruiters are trained in that, and they can toss their net across the entire nation. So if there are jobs that pay well and are going to have relocation, we've brought them. We brought them to Georgia because we can recruit that far. It's not just Employ Georgia. I mean, it is nationwide. So that's the beauty. We have a bigger pool to pull from, and we're going to use that for CRX as well. Thank you for asking that question.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, wonderful. I think Linda really summed it up when she said that let's complement one another, not compete. I think there's some type of perception out there that the work source areas can't work well with the Department of Labor or vice versa. And maybe historically that's been the case, but in the future we're not going in that direction. And so let's figure out what our resources are and learn how to complement one another and work well. And just thank you, ladies, for sharing your success stories, and thank you for the work that you do. Let's give them a round of applause.